Hello, I'm Ann Gritch, and this is a segment of the oral history of the Diocese of San Jose. With me is Father Steve Tutas. Father Steve is a Marianist priest who has made incredible and continues to make wonderful contributions to the history of our diocese. So Father Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your background. I know you were born in Ohio. A little bit about your growing up and how it is that you became a Marianist.
I'll begin with the Road to Hana. Okay. You're familiar with that?
I'm familiar with it.
Has 617 curves.
Uh-huh.
A few years ago, I learned that the Road to Hana was opened on December 18, 1926. It's amazing. That's the day I was born. Mm-hmm. So ever since then, when people ask me those questions, I refer them to the Road to Hana. The beginning was a lot of curves, and I wound up very early in life as a Marianist because I was fascinated by the brothers at Hamilton, Ohio. So I joined them and way back. And they sent me to, after I had an education, I taught briefly at Purcell, Cincinnati. And then I went to Hawaii, and I taught at St. Louis College.
And you saw the actual road?
Well, no, I didn't know anything about Hana until much later. I never got there. I was in Hawaii 2 years. Mm-hmm. Everything happened in those 2 years. I taught, of course, in the school, but the next year they created a new province, and that was the province of the Pacific. We were all, those of us who entered in at that time were from Cincinnati or Pittsburgh, places like that, were called the Cincinnati province. But the Cincinnati province included the communities in California and Hawaii. So that's the reason why I wound up in Hawaii. But I was there 2 years. The second year, they sent me to Freiburg for studies, for seminary. After Freiburg, I went back to Hawaii, and that was already 62. And I was there 7 years, 8 years. We began the university, which is Chaminade University now. I'm the only survivor of the original founders. That's an interesting compensation. I don't claim to be a founder, I'm a survivor. And after that, I was sent back to Freiburg on the staff. And I was the last American rector of our seminary. We had 120 seminarians in those days, and that's from all over the world. Everybody studied in the University of Freiburg. I came back, after that, I came back in '69 here. I was briefly here, and then as a member of the provincial council, actually, but I went to San Antonio for the general chapter in '71. So and that's when I was elected for the society. I was a superior. So I had 10 years in Rome, 2 terms. Well, I always said that I had 3 full-time jobs in Rome. One was the just keeping in contact with our society. Worldwide, and the second one was answering all the paperwork that goes with that. The third one was attending meetings in Rome, which of course were fascinating because you had all kinds of things. After my 10 years in Rome, I came back here. I was stationed here in this house, and then I was elected for the CMSM. So I worked with that for a few years.
That's the council?
Conference of Major Superiors of Men Religious, CMSM. After finishing that, I asked for a sabbatical, and they arranged for me to have that house in one of the cabins up there in presentation. It was during that time that Pierre came, Pierre came down, and he said, you know, I'd like you to be vicar for clergy. And I told Pierre, I said, you know, at this time in my life, I really expected to, you know, look forward to, I'd have a nice place and time for contemplation. Well, then you'd have more to contemplate. So that was the entry to the diocese. I served several years vicar for clergy in here, and that's how I got involved in this diocese.
Now, were you in the country when the announcement was made that San Jose would become a diocese?
No, that was made before I returned. Okay. I came back here in '82.
Oh, so a year after.
Yeah, yeah. I think this building, this property, the original building, was dedicated, I think, that year. Yeah, '81. Huh? It was in the same year as the diocese.
Now, the Marianists have always had a strong presence here in San Jose.
Yeah, there's a lot of history for that. And as I said, you could plumb John Sabaw on that.
He's the historian, but I know maybe high school.
All that stuff. But it's true. Yeah, we were here in 1883 in California. So we have a long history in all schools, grade schools, and then they evolved into Reardon in San Francisco, and then we founded MIDI here, and we had all those places.
This was also a retreat center.
Well, it was designed as a formation center, and Father Joe Stefanelli had the idea that we would form here lay and religious, and that worked for a little while. Then it became a novitiate, just focusing on the novices we had. And then they sent them back to Dayton, so there was no longer a formation. It turned into a retreat center.
And now it's a retirement center.
Well, right now, right now it's John Hasser, who just died, remodeled this place. It was marvelously remodeled. It's amazing what he did. So now that it's set up as a community with good healthcare facilities.
It's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your work as vicar for clergy. How did you kind of see that role, and how was it the fact that you're not a diocesan priest? Did that cause any rumbles?
Well, if it did, I didn't hear about it.
That was not one of the curves?
That was not part. I think it was an advantage, actually, because I was not involved in a lot of the internal issues that diocesan priests have to go through. But I worked with them. I think my only contribution was to be with them. But we had some great people. We had great committees. We had a lot of good things going on during my years that I recall.
What were some of the things that were going on?
Education. We had this clergy study week was a very good week, I thought. We also worked hard on bonding. Diocesan priests have they're loners, and it's really so. It's very important, I think, that we get together. We have a much different situation now, where it's much larger.
What were the challenges? Personalities are
I
always
think
challenges.
when Pierre gave me the job, he says, if you have anything new, tell me. In other words, it's the same challenges we have.
Okay.
But I think one of the good, the really challenge, I think, is one of the, how do you work together? I think collaborative ministry, very important. Some people have it and some people don't. But it's very, very difficult to really move a parish along unless you have everybody involved. And that means collaboration, priest with priest, priest with laity. I think that was the main thing.
When you left the office, then, what? Did you remain here in San Jose?
When I left, oh yeah, I went, for a while I was both vicar for clergy and director of the villa. And then when they asked me to take another term, I said, no, I better just stay with the villa. And that's what I did for 9 years. It's a great job. You know, I was with our own seniors who, you know, in their last years of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Great. There's an expression that we learned that the 80s are the most formative years. And so you watch these people in their 80s and how, you know, there are changes that take place at that time in your life. I think you're facing death, the reality of death. You clarify a lot of things. It was a good time.
You're still involved with the diocese. What are you doing now? I know you do visiting a lot of our priests.
I have some spiritual direction. Mm-hmm. I do that. I have always preached the insertion of religious life in the local church. I've really worked on that on all the levels. So in the CMSM and also in the GA. I think it's very important. But it's nothing new. The fact is that religious life is lived out in the local church.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more expressed when we were strongly in education. I don't think when we moved in our own theology, religious life, to focusing more on being than doing, mm-hmm. That became more of a difficulty.
What is it like now, visiting some of the older fathers? Do you have contact with any of our younger priests?
No, I don't know. I go to the gatherings. I don't know them. No. And I share that with the others. I mean, the priests that I know are practically all retired. Mm-hmm. That goes pretty far back, you know.
What do you like about the Diocese of San Jose?
Creative. I think it's over the years we've always had a kind of a freedom, I think, that other dioceses may not have had. I think Bishop Pierre was very good in allowing a lot of things to develop, and PJ's followed that.
Well, our Bishop Pierre was absolutely wonderful with women, particularly, just allowing a lot and supporting. He's very supportive. Yeah.
Well, your own work on the IOM is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, those are the things that made this a great diocese, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was glad to be part of it. Yeah.
Your time, particularly as vicar for clergy, any funny stories, any tragedies, any grand things?
One of my first interviews was with Balthazar.
Father Ayala.
Yes, he came to see me. And we had a nice chat. I learned about his life, and he learned some. And then he told me at the end, I want you to know I voted for you. And I says, well, that's fine, thank you. He says, Balthazar, you don't know me. How could you vote? Well, I knew the other guys. That was Balthazar's response, and very, very typical, you know. Mm-hmm. I don't think there were any dark moments in those years. I think the working with the priest was a tremendous opportunity, and I enjoyed it. Later on, of course, you have the dealing with the people who were sick. Many of those seniors are now, care and that sort of thing. Had a long relationship with Jean Boyle, and now with Joe Milani, stuff like that.
Actually, can you tell us a little bit about Jean Boyle? Sadly, well, for him, wonderfully, he's gone to God, but we did not have a chance.
Yeah, he would have. Well, he would have. You would never run out of questions
No.
with Gene Boyle. He would have supplied everything.
But he's a seminal figure in our diocese.
Yeah, no question about it. And it's national. I mean, not just the diocese. He's transcended this diocese.
Definitely.
He's the one who taught me an NCWC after his experience of working in Chicago. NCWC, nothing counts west of Chicago. Yeah. He was strong on that. And he forged his own way. I mean, he was one of the pioneers in the diocese, and in many ways. He was, as you know, the editor, publisher of the Regional Communications. Did we call it the Valley Catholic in the very beginning? I don't know.
Yeah, we did.
And that sort of thing. He was strong on public relations. He was strong on being present. And being the voice of the diocese. He loved that.
Well, he was also front and center when we became a diocese, and also when we opened the cathedral.
Yeah. That was his strength. He was very good at that.
Well, a fun story for me. Father Gene Boyle now Monsignor Gene Boyle, was in my priest Uncle Jack's class of 46. So I was at his ordination. I was 2 years old. I was at his ordination. And I told him at his 60th, I think, anniversary, I was the only person in the room who had been at his ordination besides himself.
That's interesting.
It was fun, yeah. He's a great man. He's a great man. Spiritual direction, you have been involved with several people in our diocese, people who are wonderful and talk about you all the time.
Yeah.
That is a great contribution that you've made to our diocese. I'm grateful.
Thank you. You know, I think the most important thing in Vicar for Clergy was just a personal contact. It wasn't a bureaucratic job. I was just working with them on these things. Al Larkin had a vicar for parish. Mine was vicar for clergy. So I worked with the people. He worked more with the structures.
So that would have been in the 90s.
Don't ask me that.
I'm pretty sure that was the 90s. Yeah. So we had, what, about 100 plus fathers that you were connecting with?
Yeah, I guess it was in those days. You know, just about 100.
So would you go visit? Would you call meetings? Would you? I knew
Well,
there were
I'd go
gatherings.
to I'd go to them, yeah. But you know, I made the rounds.
You make the rounds.
Yeah. And even then, there was a lot of, you know, I visited sick after work. I remember going to Villa Siena regularly, every day, actually, from home from the office. And when I was living here, before that, on the other side, I was at but I would know, yeah, I spent time with people. That was it, and I think that's important.
It is.
Just that contact.
It's a great gift. Well, thank you very much for taking this time with us. I'm delighted, and it's just good to listen to your input about our history. So thank you very much, Father.
Thank you. I'm happy to be part of this.
Grand.